Was there a specific role you served while working on Lasers in Space? Were you like an official title for your team or whatever? Were you like team leader? Or?
I taught the class. I taught the workshop. So
Okay.
I was just the lead faculty.
Okay, so Josh, tell me a little bit about this class where you made Lasers in Space. What exactly was it?
So it's a 2-week workshop that we host over the summer. High school students, we send out an email, and the teachers and the faculty of those schools who are in the area pick the candidates that are going to be submitted to us for the workshop. We select the candidates, they come in, and the 2-week workshop, we actually decided to do Lasers in Space, right? A homage to Space Invaders. In the workshop, we make concept art, and then they actually model out the characters. And before all this happens, they actually decide on what the game is going to be. We have a template that I decided to set forth, kind of like rough rules and regulations. So we were going to do Space Invaders, right? A game like Space Invaders, so it has some similar mechanics to it. And then they got to choose how it actually worked. So they dictated what each little enemy would do. And each one of them, I believe, had 2 enemy characters that they developed. So they did the concepts, figured out what it did, if it teleported, if it shot missiles, and then they went ahead and actually modeled those models. Well, they got to do pixel art, so it was a lot simpler. They were a lot more comfortable doing it, because sometimes, I mean, they're not all great artists, especially like in high school, and a lot of times they have like security issues, you know, for showing their art. So if it's just pixel art and they're kind of stuck to a grid, they feel a lot more confident. So they were able to pump out like a lot more. They experimented a lot more freely than they did if they have in the past. So that was really nice. And then they experimented with color a whole lot too, which is nice. I've made a bunch of games that I'll never say about it. But like I've learned a lot from each one, and I try to keep it to like a semester basis, which is really tight. And it usually comes out to more of like demos when I was an undergraduate. And now that I'm in grad school, I'm actually in my last study year in grad school.
Wow.
So I've had a couple of different projects which I
It's like you need a good game. Like what has to be in there in order for it to succeed?
People have different philosophies on this, but my philosophy is that it has to have really, really, really good gameplay, and that's the core of any game. Is how well it's designed. We're talking about mechanics, so how things function, how it plays. It can be, to me, it can be the ugliest game in the world, but if it's the funnest thing in the world, I'm still going to probably play it. Games like that were really controversial that kind of proved that point. One of them was Zelda Wind Waker, and people hated the cartoony graphics and really simple stuff, but then, you know, you get them to play it for a couple hours and then they're not going to put it down. And then story is another thing, and story is another pitfall. If I give any advice at all, story is a really big pitfall for people starting out in games. They spend so much time on story that they can spend a whole semester, you know, making lore for a game and arguing about like the history, that they don't even get anything accomplished. And then they create this structure and all these guidelines that kind of constrain what they can do with the game, that then the game that they make turns out to not be that fun.